Move out of the photograph. Sebastian Vale spoke quietly, but the ballroom microphone carried his order to more than 200 guests. Mara stood at the edge of the family platform. Beside Sebastian, Isabelle Laurent wore the sapphire brooch presented to Mara on her wedding day. Sebastian held out his hand to Isabelle. She belongs here. He was publicly placing another woman in his wife's position. Everyone knew the marriage had united two families, and that Isabelle was the woman Sebastian had never stopped loving. The empty place beside Sebastian remained in front of her. That is the position your family promised me. This is a gala, not a legal negotiation. No. It is a public decision. Mara did not step aside. Sebastian's mother motioned to security. Isabelle lowered her eyes. I never wanted to cause trouble. Then return what belongs to me, Mara said, looking at the brooch. Sebastian stepped between them. A contract may give you a title, Mara. It does not give you the right to decide who belongs beside me. No one intervened. Security turned Mara toward the west corridor. Sebastian followed to make certain she left. Isabelle came with him, still wearing Mara's brooch. At the service lift, Mara's shoulder struck a porter's trolley. An old archive box slid free and split across the marble. Photographs and inspection files scattered. A mud-stained metal tag stopped near Mara's shoe. She picked it up. Adam Mercer, Unit 14, her dead fiancé. The rescue tag had been listed as missing after the Mont Astor disaster. Isabelle's face changed. Not guilt, fear. Sebastian reached for it. Give that back. Mara closed her hand around the tag. You just removed me from your family platform before an entire ballroom. Now explain why a tag listed as missing was locked inside your family archive. Sebastian did not answer. That silence followed Mara outside. The winter air struck her face as the doors of Vale House closed behind her. Through the glass, the orchestra resumed and the photographer raised his camera again. The family portrait continued without the wife. Mara opened her hand beneath the carriage lights. Mud remained inside the stamped letters, dark and dry after 3 years. Adam had worn Unit 14 on every mountain call. He used to tap the tag against their kitchen counter when he came home, a small metallic rhythm that told her he was safe before he opened the door. The last time she heard it, he had been packing for Mont Astor. A storm had damaged the upper access road. Adam's rescue team was asked to help move resort staff and inspect the slope before a weekend conference. He kissed Mara in the doorway and promised to return Sunday evening. The mountain came down on Saturday. His body was recovered 4 days later. His radio and jacket were returned. His field notebook and identification tag were recorded as missing beneath the landslide. Mara accepted that because grief required somewhere to stop. A year later, her father's death left Ellison Holdings vulnerable to creditors and a divided board. The Vales proposed a marriage, Ellison capital and legal support in exchange for stability and a commercial alliance. Mara had spent 6 years overseeing legal risk at Ellison Holdings. She knew how quickly an incomplete record could become accepted fact. The arrangement was negotiated in meeting rooms, not gardens. Sebastian had been honest during their first private conversation. I will not pretend to love you. I won't ask you to. He told her about Isabelle, though everyone already knew. Her father's reputation had been destroyed after Mont Astor. Conrad and the Vale board rejected her as Sebastian's wife. Although Beatrice still welcomed her privately, Mara had not cared whom Sebastian loved. She had buried the man she wanted. Affection was no longer part of the life she expected. But she required 3 terms. Neither spouse would interfere in the other's private life, neither would humiliate the other publicly, and no third party would take the other spouse's legal, financial, or ceremonial position. Sebastian signed without objection. For 6 months, he kept his word. They attended formal events together, lived in separate rooms, and treated each other with the restrained respect of business partners. Then Isabelle began appearing more often, first at family lunches, then beside Sebastian during private dinners. She answered questions addressed to Mara, changed seating arrangements, and entered rooms assigned to Mara without knocking. Each intrusion was small enough to make resistance look petty. At a winter dinner, Mara found her place card moved to the far end while Isabelle sat beside Sebastian using Mara's silver napkin ring. After the guests left, Mara said, "That seat was assigned to me." "Isabel knows the directors better," Sebastian replied. "You would have refused if I asked." "That is why you did not ask." "I agreed to a marriage without affection. I did not agree to become invisible whenever affection entered the room." The next morning, the place cards were gone, as if removing the evidence removed the insult. When Isabel later replaced her at another charity dinner, Sebastian asked why it should hurt if Mara already knew whom he loved. Mara realized humiliation did not require affection. Disrespect could wound places love had never touched. Now, in the rear of her car, she photographed both sides of Adam's tag and sent them to the Alpine Rescue Association. "Please confirm whether this tag was recovered after the Mont Astor incident and who received it." The reply came 20 minutes later. A records officer named Daniel Roth called while the car was leaving the estate. "I found Adam Mercer's file," he said. "Was the tag recovered?" "No." Unit 14 remained officially unaccounted for. Could the report be incomplete? Possibly. 2 days after the search closed, Vail Executive Operations took temporary custody of a sealed container from the resort's rescue liaison room. It required a joint inventory and return within 14 days. Behind the car, the gala lights were shrinking. Who signed? The name is unclear. The department is listed as Executive Operations. Was the container returned?
And the container
No,
was never
the return deadline
returned or
passed without a completed joint inventory. Her pulse slowed. Shock always removed everything unnecessary. "Send me the recovery entry. I'll need formal authorization. You'll have it in the morning." After the call, Mara reopened a routine notice from the estate administrator. All legacy archive boxes were scheduled for transfer on Monday morning. Monday was less than 36 hours away. She called Sebastian. "Mara, tonight has already gone far enough. Did you know your family collected property from Mont Astor?" A pause. Conrad handled the investigation. "That was not my question. I knew there were boxes. I had never seen that tag before tonight." The answer came too carefully.
I understand, but I need to know.
Who ordered the archive moved?
Who exactly gave that order?
That has nothing to do with you.
Don't
It
worry
does
about
now.
it.
Return the
The tag must be
tag and let the
returned for
family
internal
review the
review.
box. The family had 3 years.
I'm not
His
giving
voice
it back.
hardened. "You are making this personal." "It became personal when my dead fiancé's identification tag appeared in your locked archive." She ended the call. A final message arrived from Daniel Roth. The property had been released under a temporary internal safety review agreement. No completed joint inventory or return was ever recorded. At the bottom of the estate notice, the schedule refreshed. Transfer time amended. Sunday, 11:55 p.m. The archive was no longer leaving Monday morning. It was leaving before midnight. By 8 the next morning, the photograph had already traveled farther than Mara had. It appeared first on the Vail Foundation's official page, Sebastian at the center of the platform, Isabel beside him in the sapphire brooch, Beatrice on his other side, all three framed beneath the gold crest of Vail House. The caption thanked the family members and lifelong friends who had preserved the estate through difficult years. Mara's name was absent. A second image surfaced 20 minutes later on a society account. It showed security guiding her from the platform. The angle hid the archive corridor and the broken box. From a distance, she looked like a woman being removed after an argument. The comments supplied the story before the family did. Some called the marriage unhappy. Others said Mara had never accepted Sebastian's devotion to Isabel. Several praised Isabel for remaining composed. No one mentioned the brooch. At 9:15, Beatrice Vail summoned Mara to the Vail Group's Geneva office. Mara arrived with Adam's tag sealed inside an evidence pouch in her handbag. She had photographed its condition, recorded the time, and refused to let anyone touch it. Beatrice sat behind a walnut table. Sebastian stood near the window. Isabel was absent, though a cup of tea rested beside the empty chair at Beatrice's right. "You will release a statement," Beatrice said. "You became distressed after seeing an item connected to the Mont Astor tragedy. You regret disrupting the gala and appreciate the family's concern. That is not what happened. It is what people will understand. You removed me from a family photograph, gave my wedding brooch to another woman, and had security escort me out when I refused to accept it." Beatrice's expression did not move. The public does not need the details of a private arrangement. You made it public. Sebastian turned from the window. Return the tag. We will identify how it entered the archive. You reached for it before I said Adam's name. I recognized rescue equipment. I grew up around the resort. You did not ask what it was doing there. Beatrice cut in. Enough. This family will not be interrogated over an object from a box. Mara took out the recovery entry Daniel Roth had sent that morning. The signature was blurred, but the printed department was clear. Vail Resorts Executive Operations. The association recorded Adam's tag as missing, Mara said. 2 days after the search closed, someone from your executive office collected a sealed container of unidentified field property. It was never returned. Sebastian read the page without touching it. Conrad supervised the post-incident review. And no one asked why the property was never returned? I was 29. Conrad handled operational matters. Beatrice leaned forward. Mara, grief can create patterns where none exist. The sentence was gentle enough for lawyers and cruel enough to make her look unstable. My grief did not print your company's name on a recovery log. Beatrice rose. You will not accuse this family because a porter dropped an old box. I have accused no one yet. After Beatrice left, Sebastian admitted Isabel should not have worn the brooch. But I should have stepped aside? Mara asked. You knew what this marriage was. Yes, that is why the rules were written down. He offered a family review if she returned the tag. By Conrad? When he suggested the family's legal team instead, Mara refused. The same family had stored Adam's property for 3 years. Mara left the office and called Ruth Keller, the estate archivist. Ruth said the transfer had originally been scheduled for the last week of the month, then moved after the gala committee meeting. Who requested it? Isabelle Laurent. She said Mrs. Vail authorized it. When? Thursday. 2 days before Mara found the tag. Ruth lowered her voice. The box that broke last night was not on my outgoing list Friday morning. Box 17? Do not use that number again on the phone. The line disconnected. The schedule no longer looked administrative. Someone had begun moving pieces before Mara knew there was a puzzle. Mara opened the transfer notice. A new instruction had appeared beneath the amended time. Box 17 priority removal. No digital inventory required. At 11:30, Mara returned to Vail House for what Beatrice called a family review. It was not a family meeting. The drawing room had been arranged for damage control, communications advisors, general counsel, 3 hotel directors, the foundation head, and an Ellison representative. Isabel sat beside Beatrice with a Vail folder. Mara's chair waited at the far end, and she took it without comment. Beatrice opened the meeting. Last night created unnecessary confusion. We need a clear response before speculation affects the foundation calendar and the Mont Astor redevelopment. One advisor slid a draft statement across the table. Due to the emotional impact of an unexpected reminder of a past tragedy, Mrs. Vail will temporarily step back from public obligations. Mara read the sentence twice. And who performs those obligations? Beatrice did not look at Isabel. Someone familiar with the family's charitable work. Isabel folded her hands. Only until things settle. I am not trying to take anything from you. You are sitting in the meeting called to remove me. Conrad leaned back. No one is removing you. This is a practical adjustment. Made without my consent. Sebastian spoke. Consent is not required for the family to choose who represents its public interests. Martin Shaw, her father's advisor for 12 years, lowered his eyes to the draft statement. It was not agreement or belief. It was calculation. Mara set the paper down. Our marriage agreement states that neither party may publicly diminish the other's ceremonial or social position for the benefit of a third person. The general counsel adjusted his glasses. The clause was intended to prevent reputational harm between the two families. Then it is doing exactly the work it was written to do. Beatrice's mouth tightened. This is not about Isabel. She is holding the replacement schedule. Every face turned toward the folder in Isabel's hands. Isabel looked uncertain. Sebastian crossed the room. Enough. We married because our families required stability. Do not turn an arrangement into a claim over every room, event, or person connected to me. I am claiming what your family signed. And the family needs someone who actually wants to be here." The sentence landed without raised voices or broken glass. That made it worse. Mara let her gaze move around the table. One director studied his cuff. The foundation head rearranged her pen. Martin remained silent because Ellison Holdings was negotiating a refinancing package that depended on Vale's support. They knew what Sebastian had done. None intended to risk anything by saying so. Beatrice pushed the statement closer. "Sign it, Mara." The wording protects everyone. It protects the people who created the humiliation and describes the person humiliated as unstable. Conrad's expression hardened. "Choose your next words carefully." "No, you chose the wording. You should be able to hear what it means." Mara rose. Sebastian blocked the door. "If you refuse, the family will issue the statement without your signature. Then the absence of my signature will matter later." "Is that a threat?" "It is a record." She stepped around him. In the corridor, Ruth Keller approached with transfer manifests pressed against her chest. Two security officers walked several paces behind her. As she passed Mara, one sheet slipped from the stack and landed face down. Mara bent to pick it up. Ruth reached for it at the same time. Her fingers covered the lower corner for less than a second. A folded strip of paper remained against Mara's palm when Ruth took the manifest back. "Thank you, Mrs. Vale." Her voice was formal. Her face revealed nothing. Mara continued to the powder room before opening the note. Box 17 was not in the catalog last week. Below it, Ruth had written 3 inventory numbers and 1 date. Mara photographed the note, tore it into narrow pieces, and placed them beneath wet paper towels in the bin. Her phone rang before she left the room. It was her mother. "Mara, Martin told us you refused the statement." He reported quickly. "The Ellison refinancing vote is Tuesday. We cannot afford a public war with the Vales now. So, I should let them call me emotionally unstable? You should let the story die. The story is attached to evidence from Adam's death." Her mother was silent. Then she said, "Adam is gone. Your family is still here." Mara closed her eyes. She had entered the marriage to protect them. Now they were asking her to protect the arrangement from the truth. "I will not destroy the Ellisons," Mara said. "But I will not bury him for you." She ended the call and opened the photograph of Ruth's note. The inventory numbers belonged to separate collections: Mont Astor safety records, executive correspondence, and recovered personal property. Box 17 had not always been a box. Someone had assembled it recently from evidence once stored apart. Mara enlarged the transfer manifest she had seen in Ruth's hands. At the bottom, beneath the authorization line, a new entry had been typed in a different font. Box 17 combined legacy material. No original location, no creation date, no digital record. Someone had built a container designed to disappear. Ruth chose a cafe beneath the railway arches, far from Vale House. She arrived in a raincoat, kept it on, and admitted she had taken 3 trains in case she was followed. Mara placed her phone face down. The coffee between them remained untouched. Ruth opened a plain envelope and slid out a photocopy. "This is the original intake sheet for the Mont Astor collection. The form had been created 2 days after the final recovery operation. It listed 1 sealed container released to Vale Resorts for a 14-day internal safety review, with a joint inventory required before its return. The receiving signature was untidy. The printed name beneath it was clear: Conrad Vale." Mara kept her voice level. "You said Box 17 did not exist last week." "It did not exist under that number." Ruth folded her hands around the cup. "The Mont Astor material was never cataloged as one collection. Conrad ordered it divided." "Why?" "He said the files involved legal privilege, personal property, and security records. Each category went somewhere different. None entered the public archive database." Ruth produced an old handwritten shelf register. "Recovered field property. Executive correspondence. Site inspection photographs. Rescue liaison notes. 4 separate locations. 6 months ago," Ruth continued, "Isabel asked me to locate everything connected to her father. She said she wanted to clear his name." Ruth had allowed Isabel to see only material approved by Conrad. Isabel became angry when a field notebook, a rescue camera, and 2 handwritten pages could not be located. Mara felt Adam's tag through her handbag. Were they listed when the container arrived? The notebook and camera were. The pages were not separate then. Ruth pushed another inventory across the table. Adam Mercer's name appeared beside a weatherproof notebook, a damaged camera, and an identification tag. A handwritten note marked the notebook and tag as items that had not appeared on the Rescue Association's final family return list. The notebook and tag had been recorded as missing in the official rescue file, yet both were present when Vail Resorts accepted temporary custody. Someone had allowed an incomplete public record to stand after the property entered the Vail system. Who created Box 17? Mara asked. I cannot prove it. Last Saturday, Conrad's office requested material from the 4 locations. On Thursday, Isabel delivered a handwritten list of items she said must travel together. Yesterday morning, the new box appeared. Did you see inside? Only from the top. Photographs, inspection folders, the tag. Part of the notebook. Part? The binding was there, but 2 leaves had been cut close to the spine. Mara studied the intake sheet. Why help me? Ruth's expression tightened. I preserve records. I do not make inconvenient years disappear. She hesitated before taking back the envelope. The transfer company does not destroy documents. It stores them at a private facility registered to a Vail subsidiary. Once the boxes leave, only executive operations can authorize access. The transfer was not disposal, it was burial with paperwork. Ruth stood. Do not contact me again unless you have counsel. You may lose your job. I may have already lost it. She left without looking back. Mara called Tomas Berger from the pavement. He answered after the 4th ring. I told the inquiry everything I knew. I am asking about Adam's notebook. Silence. Where did you hear about that? It was recovered. Tomas exhaled. Then someone lied to his family. They met an hour later at a rescue station outside the city. Tomas had grown thinner since Adam's memorial. A scar crossed his left temple. He led Mara into an equipment room and closed the door. Adam started writing things down 3 days before the slide, Tomas said. The retaining wall above the service road had shifted. Drainage channels were blocked, and the ground moved after every freeze. Did he report it? To the site manager. Twice. He requested that the service road close and the lower staff buildings be evacuated. What happened? The resort had a diplomatic conference arriving. Management said a closure would trigger cancellations. Who made that decision? We never learned. The manager kept saying it came from executive operations. Did the inquiry ask about the warnings? They asked what happened after the slope failed. They never asked who refused to close the road before it failed. Mara placed the intake sheet on the table. Tomas stared at Conrad's name. Adam went back after the first collapse, because 14 seasonal workers were still in the lower building, he said. They should have been moved hours earlier. Mara had spent 3 years believing Adam died responding to a disaster no one could have prevented. She pictured him at their kitchen door, promising Sunday evening as if the future were an ordinary appointment. He had not returned to the slope because he misjudged the danger. He had returned because managers had left 14 workers where no one should have remained. For a moment, Mara could not look at Tomas. Her grief had always contained the mountain. Now it contained a decision made in an office. The question was no longer why Adam had gone back. It was who had made his return necessary. Tomas opened an old locker and removed a laminated route map. Near the service road, Adam had drawn a red circle around the retaining wall. Beside it, in his handwriting, were 4 words, close before delegation arrives. By mid-afternoon, Mara and Tomas were climbing toward Mont Astor, less than 2 hours from Geneva, with the route map sealed inside a document sleeve between them. The road climbed through pine forest and old snow. 3 years earlier, news vans had lined the final bend. Now construction barriers carried the Vail Resort's crest and a rendering of the rebuilt resort. Mont Astor Renewal, a new beginning. Tomas looked at the sign and said nothing. At the main gate, a security officer scanned Mara's identification and frowned at the screen. Your access has been revoked. By whom? Mr. Sebastian Vail's office. Effective this morning. Mara glanced at Tomas. Sebastian had acted before she told him where she was going. I am requesting access to inspect records and physical areas connected to a pending evidence preservation notice. The officer's posture changed. Do you have a court order? Not yet. Then I cannot admit you. Beyond the barrier, workers in orange jackets were measuring the lower service road. White marks crossed the asphalt near the retaining wall on Adam's map. Tomas stepped closer to the fence. They are marking the old drainage line. A machine stood farther uphill beside stacks of concrete panels. What are the panels for? Mara asked. The officer followed her gaze. The lower tunnel is being sealed tomorrow morning. Safety work. What time? 6. The map showed the rescue team had stored equipment beside that tunnel. Mara photographed the machinery, survey marks, and posted work order from the public road. The officer ordered her to stop, but the approaching black utility vehicle interrupted him. The site manager, Henrik Dahl, stepped out. Mara remembered his name from the original inquiry, though his statement had been only 2 paragraphs long. Mrs. Vale, you need to leave, Henrik said. Did Adam Mercer ask you to close the service road? His face became still. Tomas stepped forward. I was there. Henrik ordered security to end the conversation. Mara held up the route map without passing it through the fence. Adam marked the retaining wall before the slope failed. He wrote that the road had to close before the delegation arrived. I have no recollection of that. Then you will have no objection to preserving the radio logs, maintenance records, and the field equipment room beside the lower tunnel. Henrik's eyes moved toward the construction machinery. That glance answered more than his words. There is nothing in that room, he said. Tomas stared at him. Our camera was stored there after the first survey. The rescue service collected its equipment. No, one camera never came back. Henrik opened the gate just wide enough to speak to the officer privately. Mara caught only the final instruction. Call executive operations. The gate closed again. Mara and Tomas returned to the car. From the passenger seat, she called Helena Ward, the independent solicitor she had contacted after leaving Ruth. Helena had already requested the regional inspection file and begun tracing the billing reference copied from the archive register. Mara added the missing notebook pages, Adam's map, and the scheduled sealing of the tunnel. Helena interrupted only once. Do not enter the property without authorization. I will send preservation notices to Vale Resorts, the construction contractor, the archive facility, and the local authority. They are not court orders, but destroying material after receipt creates a different problem. How quickly? Within 20 minutes. The notices went out before 4:30. 8 minutes later, Conrad Vale called. You have involved outside counsel. I involved someone who does not work for your family. Conrad warned that delaying Mont Astor could cost hundreds of jobs and destabilize the hotel group. You kept Adam's tag and divided the evidence across private archives, Mara said. He argued that panic after 14 deaths could have closed every Vale property in the region. That explains the motive to hide a warning. It does not explain keeping a dead man's property. When Conrad ordered her back to the estate, Mara refused. He ended the call. 5 minutes later, Sebastian promised he could arrange archive access the next day. The archive leaves tonight. Stop the transfer in writing. He asked for time. You have until 6 tomorrow morning before they seal the tunnel. My access was revoked today. He did not deny it. A message from Helena confirmed that the preservation notices had been delivered. Ruth wrote moments later. They are moving box 17 to the loading bay now. The transfer crew is not due until 11:55. Someone was no longer waiting for midnight. Soon after, Helena sent Mara a scanned packet from the regional planning office. The first document was an inspection report dated 6 weeks before the Mont Astor landslide. It described movement in the retaining wall, blocked drainage, and a recommendation to suspend use of the lower service road until repairs were completed. The second report carried the same inspection number, date, and property. Different conclusion. No immediate closure required. The second report bore the signature of Etienne Laurent, Isabelle's father. Mara called Helena. Which one was filed officially? The second. The first survived because the local engineer attached it to a billing dispute. Who requested the replacement? No written request. But the revised version was uploaded from the Vale Resorts network. The metadata traced the upload to an executive operations account. The username had disappeared during a system migration, not enough to identify Conrad. Enough to prove the report had not changed inside Laurent's office alone. There is more, Helena said. Laurent Construction was due to lose 4 Vale contracts if Mont Astor closed before the diplomatic delegation arrived. So he had a motive to sign. And pressure. Pressure does not erase the signature. No. It explains the leverage. Beyond the windscreen, the preservation notice had slowed the work near the tunnel, not stopped it. Tomas watched the site through the windscreen. Did Adam ever mention Laurent? Mara asked. Only once. He said the contractor knew the wall was moving but kept sending crews below it. Did he think Laurent was being forced? Tomas shook his head. Adam did not care why someone ignored the warning. People were still below the slope. A message arrived from an unknown number. You are reading only the version they want you to find. Below it was a photograph of a meeting calendar. 6 weeks before the disaster, Conrad Vale had met with Etienne Laurent, the resort manager, and the head of security. The sender wrote again, ask why the emergency closure draft disappeared. Mara called the number. Isabel answered. You sent the calendar? My father kept copies after they blamed him. Why did he sign the false report? Isabel said Conrad had threatened every Vale contract supporting 200 workers. Her father drafted an emergency closure, but Conrad's office returned it with changes, and the signed copy vanished after the landslide. Why were you searching the archive? A pause. To prove he was not the only person responsible. That is not the same as proving he was innocent. Isabel said nothing. Mara understood. Isabel was not hunting for the complete truth. She wanted a version that freed her father without exposing what he had willingly done. Isabel admitted giving Ruth the list used to assemble Box 17 and requesting the transfer before redevelopment erased the remaining records. Yet, you tried to take Adam's tag from me. You would destroy my father to punish Sebastian. Isabel still saw Mara as a wife competing for a man. This is not about Sebastian, Mara said. It is always about Sebastian. For you. Isabel ended the call. Helena's paralegal finished tracing the billing reference Ruth had copied. The ledger showed that Laurent Construction received an emergency payment 3 days before the diplomatic delegation arrived. Accelerated stabilization works. No matching work appeared in the site records. 4 days after the landslide, a second transfer reached a holding company registered to Conrad's brother-in-law. The first payment created leverage over Laurent. The revised report kept the resort open. The second moved money away from work that had never been completed. No document proved the entire chain alone. Together, they showed a decision passing through several hands. The next call came from Sebastian. He had already learned that Isabel had contacted Mara. When Mara asked whether he knew 2 inspection versions existed, he admitted seeing the original last winter. Conrad called it an unverified draft. Did you believe him? Sebastian hesitated. I believed reopening the case would destroy more lives than it helped. He had not been ignorant. He had chosen silence. Before Mara could answer, Ruth sent a photograph from the loading bay. Box 17 sat alone on a metal cart. Conrad's private counsel stood beside it, speaking to the transfer supervisor. Beneath the photograph, Ruth wrote, "They are separating the notebook from the rest." The warning changed the next hour from preparation into a race. Helena called the transfer company and demanded written confirmation that nothing would leave Vale House while the preservation notice was under review. The company agreed to pause collection for 1 hour, not because it accepted Mara's claim, but because it did not want to become part of it. Soon after, Sebastian sent a car for her. Mara refused it and drove herself to a private suite above the Vale Group's Geneva headquarters. Before Mara went upstairs, Helena photographed the tag, issued a custody receipt, and sealed it under her firm's control. From that moment, no one could claim Mara had altered it after finding it. He was waiting alone. The sapphire brooch lay on the table between them. Beside it was a draft separation agreement. Sebastian did not ask whether she wanted a drink. I can end this tonight, he said. Mara remained standing. The transfer? The public dispute. He pushed the brooch toward her. You will be restored to the family calendar. Isabel will leave Vale House. My mother will issue a statement confirming your position. The separation terms are generous. Mara looked at the papers without touching them. And box 17? You withdraw the preservation demand. The offer was clear, not an apology, a price. You are offering me things your family already promised in exchange for silence about a dead man's evidence. I am offering you a way out that does not destroy both families. Which family are you protecting from the truth? Sebastian warned that reopening Mont Astor could freeze financing and cost jobs across the hotel group. Conrad used the same argument when he kept the road open. That is not fair. No, it is familiar. The consequences were real when 14 people died. His expression closed. You did not come into this marriage believing I owed you love. I never asked for it. Then stop treating Isabel as if she stole something emotional from you. Mara finally sat down. This has never been about whether you loved her. It is about what you allowed her to take because you decided I would not feel the loss. He glanced at the brooch. You can have it back. I do not want it now. That unsettled him more than anger would have. Mara opened the separation agreement. One clause required both parties to refrain from statements that could damage the Vale family, its officers, subsidiaries, or historical operations. The wording reached backward 3 years. This was drafted before tonight, she said. Sebastian said nothing. How long? Conrad prepared options after the gala. No. This clause covers Mont Astor specifically without naming it. She turned the page toward him. When did you decide my marriage could become a confidentiality agreement? He looked toward the dark window. Last winter, Conrad showed me the original inspection report. He also said Adam had sent a field warning to executive operations before the collapse. The room seemed smaller. You knew Adam wrote to your family. I was told the message was incomplete and never formally logged. And you accepted that? I asked what reopening the case would do. Conrad gave me the numbers. Not the names of the dead. The numbers. Mara closed the agreement. You had a chance to ask what happened to Adam's warning. I had a responsibility to keep the company alive. You had a choice. So do you? He placed a pen beside the papers. Mara stood. Yes. She left the brooch, the agreement, and the pen where they were. Before 7, the Vale Communications office released a statement without her approval. It described Mara as a woman still grieving her former fiancé who had become emotionally distressed after encountering material connected to his death. The wording was careful. It did not call her unstable. It invited everyone else to do it for them. Minutes later, her mother called. The refinancing committee is threatening to postpone Tuesday's vote. Her mother said the refinancing vote might be postponed because the Vales were calling Mara's inquiry a corporate attack. My private tragedy happened on their property. Your father built Ellison Holdings for 40 years. You cannot save Adam now. No, but I can stop them from using his death to protect themselves. Her mother warned that Ellison employees could also suffer. Mara heard the same defense moving from one family to the other, polished by fear, until silence sounded responsible. I will not expose anything I cannot prove, she said, but I will not promise not to prove it. She ended the call. Helena was waiting downstairs with a new document. Vale Counsel filed an objection to the preservation notice, she said. They claim the notebook is privileged internal review material. Who authorized the objection? Helena showed her the signature. Sebastian Vale. The transfer company's 1-hour pause expired. Ruth sent another photograph. Box 17 remained in the loading bay, but the notebook did not. A black Vale security vehicle had left the estate minutes earlier. Shortly after, Ruth Keller called from the pavement outside Vale House. They dismissed me. Mara moved away from Helena's desk. For meeting me? For failing to report it. Security searched my office before I could collect my coat. Did they take your phone? They tried. I copied the old catalog before they locked me out. There is a photograph you need. A file arrived. It showed the original Mont Astor intake collection before the items were divided. Adam's tag, his weatherproof notebook, site photographs, and a compact rescue camera with a cracked red casing. Beside the camera was a withdrawal entry dated 6 months earlier. Received by Isabel Laurent. Mara enlarged the signature. Why would Isabel take the camera? Helena asked. Because she was looking for more than the missing pages. Mara called her. Isabel declined twice before answering. You removed Adam's camera 6 months ago. Silence. Where is it? You should worry about what your husband is doing now. I am. Not enough. A door closed on Isabel's end. Her voice dropped. Sebastian signed a statement this afternoon. It says my father altered the inspection report without executive authorization and concealed the wall's condition from Vail Resorts. Is that false? Not entirely. Which part is? The part where no one above him knew. Mara waited. Conrad promised my father the remaining contracts if he signed, Isabel said. Sebastian's statement makes it look as though my father invented everything and Vail management learned the truth only after the disaster. Sebastian is protecting the company. He is protecting himself. The distinction had reached Isabel only when her own family became expendable. Where is the camera? I took it because the equipment log showed it had been used during the final inspection. The memory card was already missing. Who knew? Sebastian. I told him 6 months ago, the same night I removed the camera from the archive. I thought he would help me trace the card. And instead? He told me to stop digging if I wanted the family to accept me. Isabel had mistaken indulgence for loyalty. Sebastian protected her only while she remained useful and quiet. Do you still have the camera? No. When Conrad's staff began auditing archive withdrawals, I took it back to Montaster. I searched the old equipment cabinet because the rescue team stored spare cards and batteries there. The card was gone. I hid the camera behind the cabinet's removable back panel rather than return it to Vail House and let Conrad destroy it. Where? In the old equipment cabinet beside the lower tunnel. The cabinet behind the gate Mara had been denied entry to. The tunnel is being sealed at 6 tomorrow. I know. Why tell me now? Because Sebastian's statement goes to investigators in the morning. Not conscience. Timing. Isabel was trying to stop her father from carrying every consequence alone. Isabel had seen only the first page of Sebastian's statement. It accused her father of retaining recovered rescue property even though Conrad had signed the intake sheet. Will you say that publicly? Mara asked. I will say what I can prove. It was the same careful line everyone used before choosing silence. Mara nearly ended the call. Then Isabel said, I have 2 pages from Adam's notebook. I will send you one. Helena looked up. What is on it? A record of a meeting. Conrad threatened to end my father's contracts. My father wrote that he would sign the revised inspection if the resort funded emergency reinforcement after the delegation left. So he traded the report for a promise. Yes. And the work never happened. No. Send both pages. If I do, you will use them against him. They already condemn him. They also prove Conrad gave the order. Then they belong in the investigation. Isabel's voice sharpened. You want the truth because the dead man was yours. I want it because the living man is my father. No, you want a version that saves him. And you want one that makes Adam blameless. Adam reported the danger and returned for people who should have been evacuated. If he made mistakes, evidence should show them. They should not be invented to balance everyone else's guilt. Neither spoke. Then Isabel sent a photograph of the first torn page. It recorded the meeting date, Conrad's threat, Laurent's agreement, and the promised reinforcement that never happened. The second page stays with me until the meeting, Isabel said. I will bring both originals. What meeting? Vail House, 9:30. Conrad called the directors after your preservation notice. Why tell me? Because Sebastian signed his statement. The call ended. Ruth sent one final message. The black security vehicle returned, but no one carried the notebook back into the archive. Mara looked at Helena. They moved it somewhere else. Helena reached for her coat. Then we stop following the notebook. What do we follow? The people who need the board to believe a lie before 9:30. Mara looked at the sealed evidence pouch on Helena's desk. The deadline was no longer midnight. It was the meeting. At 9:27 p.m., Vail House no longer looked like a gala venue. Flowers had been replaced by folders and hastily summoned advisors. Conrad Vail occupied the head of the table. Sebastian and Beatrice sat beside him. 3 directors joined by secure video. After receiving Helena's preservation notice, one independent director required that Mara, Helena, and Tomas be heard before any vote or transfer authorization. Helena also forwarded Ruth's catalog copy and dismissal notice. The director issued Ruth a written witness invitation, but Helena kept her arrival confidential so Conrad could not block her at the gate. Mara entered with Helena Ward and Tomas Berger. Conrad looked at Helena. "This is a private governance meeting. It concerns evidence subject to a preservation notice," Helena said. "Privacy does not cancel legal risk." Helena placed Adam's sealed tag and the custody receipt on the table. Sebastian's eyes went to it immediately. This meeting was called because Mara has made serious allegations based on grief, incomplete records, and material taken from a restricted archive, Conrad said. The board deserves the facts. He distributed a statement. It blamed Etienne Laurent for falsifying the retaining wall inspection, concealing the condition of the service road, and retaining recovered rescue property without authorization. Vale Resorts, it claimed, learned of those actions only after the inquiry closed. Isabel was absent, Mara noticed. One misplaced object does not justify reopening an investigated tragedy. Beatrice looked at Mara. "You have been offered a dignified way to step back." "A way to step back from what?" "From turning personal loss into public destruction." Mara faced Conrad. "Did you sign for a sealed container of recovered field property 2 days after the search ended?" "I signed for numerous materials during the internal review." Conrad claimed he had not inspected every item in the container. Mara listed the tag, notebook, photographs, and rescue camera, then asked why none had been jointly inventoried or returned. "Administrative error," Conrad said. "And the 2 pages cut from Adam's notebook?" "I do not accept that they were cut." Mara placed Ruth's catalog photograph beside the intake sheet. The directors leaned closer. Conrad tapped the image. "A former employee's private copy proves nothing. It proves the notebook was intact when your archive received it." A director asked whether the collection had been disclosed to the official inquiry. Conrad answered that investigators had received all relevant records. "You avoided the question," Mara said. "I am presenting a chain of custody your family broke." Conrad's voice sharpened. "Your case rests on a tag, an archive photograph, and the memory of a rescue worker carrying survivor's guilt." Tomas stood. "I carried 11 people out of the lower building." Tomas placed Adam's route map on the table. Adam marked the retaining wall before the collapse. He requested closure twice. "We were told the order to stay open came from executive operations. After a disaster, memories organize themselves around blame," Conrad said. Tomas held his gaze. "Before it, your managers organized people around profit." The general counsel intervened. "Unless you have contemporaneous evidence." "We do," Helena said. She set down the 2 inspection reports. The first recommended closure. The second, with the same number and date, declared no immediate closure necessary and bore Etienne Laurent's signature. Conrad turned 1 page. "Laurent falsified it. That is what our statement says." Mara placed the meeting calendar beside it. "You met Laurent, the resort manager, and security 6 weeks before the landslide." Helena summarized the financial trail: an emergency stabilization payment before the delegation, no matching work record, and a second transfer to a holding company connected to Conrad's family after the landslide. Conrad leaned back. "Ordinary contractor payments interpreted by people looking for a crime." "Then preserve the invoices," Helena said. General counsel stopped writing. Sebastian turned toward his uncle. "You told me the first payment funded temporary reinforcement." "It did. There is no work record. There were emergency conditions." "Then produce the contractor log." Conrad's gaze hardened. "Do not let her turn uncertainty into betrayal." The door opened. Isabel entered carrying a narrow archival folder. Sebastian stood. "Why are you here?" "To correct your statement." She placed a torn notebook page on the table. Conrad's composure slipped. "My father signed the revised inspection," Isabel said. "He knew the wall was unsafe. Conrad threatened to end every Vale contract if he closed the road before the delegation left. My father agreed to change the report in exchange for reinforcement after the event." Beatrice whispered, "Isabel, stop." "No." Sebastian's statement says my father acted alone and hid the rescue property. Conrad signed for the container. Conrad turned to General Counsel. "Remove that document. It is stolen property." Helena stepped forward. "Touching it now would be unwise." That lie broke. Conrad reached for another. Even if Laurent was pressured, no one in this room received a verified warning of an imminent collapse. Isabel opened the folder again. Another torn page lay inside. Sebastian's face changed before she spoke. Adam recorded that the original warning was copied to the heir's office at 1620. Every director looked at Sebastian. Mara asked, "Was it sent to you?" "I was in Geneva." "That was not the question. My office received hundreds of messages." "Did you see it before the landslide?" "No." "Did you learn about it later?" Sebastian looked at Conrad. Conrad answered for him. Incomplete correspondence was discussed after the inquiry. Nothing proved it was actionable. Mara kept her eyes on Sebastian. "When did you learn Adam had sent it?" "Last winter." Mara said, "After learning that, you still allowed your family to say no warning reached executive operations." "I was told the message had not been logged properly." "You had the original report, the missing warning, and Adam's property in your family archive." "I had conflicting information." "You had enough to ask." Conrad cut in. Sebastian had a duty to protect the company from an accusation that could not be proven. "No," Mara said. "He had a chance to stop a lie from becoming policy." At a signal from the independent director, the doors opened again. Ruth entered under the written witness invitation, carrying a laptop pressed against her chest. "I sent the original catalog to every director before security removed my access." Ruth faced Conrad. "The register shows the notebook, camera, tag, and photographs were received under your signature. Last week, your office ordered the remaining items combined into Box 17. Today, Sebastian authorized the notebook's removal after the preservation notice arrived." Sebastian looked at Conrad. "You said it was being secured." "It was." "Where is it?" Conrad did not answer. General Counsel rose. "Under the board's emergency preservation rules, I am freezing all transfers until an independent review is complete. No archive material leaves this property. Security will preserve the loading bay, executive vehicles, and every Mont Astor file." "You cannot override me," Conrad said. "The board can," said the first director. "I am calling an emergency vote." Sebastian turned to Mara as though she might still protect him. She looked at the man who had offered her a brooch in exchange for silence. "You never owed me love," she said. "You owed me the truth." The vote removed Conrad from operational authority pending investigation. Sebastian was suspended from executive duties for obstructing preservation and approving a misleading statement. Security sealed the archive at 10:18 p.m. A second team was sent to intercept the vehicle carrying Adam's notebook. The transfer scheduled for 11:55 never left the estate. The notebook was recovered at 11:06 p.m. from a Vale security garage 12 miles from the estate. Its cover had been cut, but the remaining pages were intact. By Monday morning, an independent legal team controlled the Mont Astor archive. The lower tunnel was not sealed. Construction stopped while investigators photographed the service road, retaining wall, and equipment cabinet beside it. Inside the cabinet, investigators found Adam's cracked rescue camera hidden behind the removable back panel Isabel had described. Its internal event log showed that a memory card had been present during the final inspection and was ejected 2 days after the search ended the same evening. Conrad's office signed the equipment into executive operations. An equipment handling sheet led investigators to a former Vale security technician. He confirmed that, on Conrad's instruction, he removed the card, sealed it in an unmarked envelope, and delivered it to executive operations. The envelope was never recovered. The recording remained lost, but responsibility for its disappearance no longer was. The intake records, altered inspection, Adam's notes, payments, and witnesses formed a chain the missing footage could not break. The investigation reopened within 2 weeks. Conrad Vale resigned before the board could remove him permanently. Prosecutors began reviewing possible obstruction, false statements, and misuse of corporate funds. Etienne Laurent admitted signing the revised inspection after Conrad threatened to terminate every contract supporting his company. He did not ask to be called innocent. He said he had feared losing 200 jobs and chose to ignore the people standing below the wall. The truth did not clean him. It placed his guilt beside Conrad's instead of beneath it. Isabelle surrendered both original notebook pages and every archive copy she had made. Her cooperation reduced the accusations against her, but it did not erase the months she spent hiding evidence, moving records, and treating Mara's public position as something she deserved. She left Vale House without the sapphire brooch. Beatrice sent it to Mara 3 days later in a velvet case. There was no letter. Mara returned it through her solicitor. By Tuesday afternoon, the Vale Foundation removed the gala portrait from its official page and published a correction approved by the independent directors. It acknowledged that Mara had discovered withheld Mont Astor property and that the earlier description of her as emotionally distressed had been misleading. The board publicly confirmed Conrad's removal and Sebastian's suspension. Society pages that had circulated the photograph of Mara being escorted out reposted it beside the correction. The image intended to erase her became the image attached to the investigation. Sebastian remained suspended while the board investigated his role in removing the notebook and approving the false public statement. He called Mara twice. She answered the second time because their separation documents still required decisions. "I did not know before the landslide," he said. "I know. I never wanted Adam to die. That was never the accusation. I thought reopening it would destroy the company. You thought silence would make the damage belong to someone else." He breathed slowly into the phone. "What happens to us now?" Mara looked at the unsigned agreement he had placed beside the brooch. There was never an us to save. Their marriage had begun without love. It ended without a fight over affection, property, or public sympathy. Mara requested only what had belonged to her before the wedding and the financial terms both families had already signed. She surrendered every ceremonial title attached to Vale House. Her mother objected. Ellison Holdings lost its refinancing vote. 2 directors threatened to leave. For several weeks, Mara was blamed inside her own family for choosing a dead man's truth over a living company. Then, the Independent Review published its preliminary findings. The same safety shortcuts found at Mont Astor appeared in 2 older Vale properties and 1 Ellison-backed redevelopment. Closing those sites for inspection cost both families millions. It may also have prevented another death. Mara's mother never apologized directly. She sent one message after the closures were announced. "You were right to keep looking." Mara did not answer immediately. She was still learning that forgiveness did not require pretending the pressure had never existed. 3 months later, the Independent Accident Review and a separate legal report corrected the public record. The Accident Review confirmed that Adam Mercer and the rescue team had warned management before the slope failed. 14 workers remained in the lower buildings because the resort refused to close the service road before the diplomatic delegation departed. It named Conrad's order and Etienne's signature. The legal report documented Sebastian's later obstruction. Together, the findings named every rescuer who returned to the unstable slope. On the first clear morning of spring, Mara traveled to the Mont Astor Memorial with Tomas and Adam's sister. The rebuilt plaque stood above the old service road. For years, it had described the landslide as a sudden natural disaster. Now it included the warning that had been ignored. Adam's sister held out her hand. Mara placed the rescue tag in it. The metal looked smaller beneath daylight than it had in the corridor at Vale House. For 3 years, it had been hidden inside a box designed to separate objects from their history. Now Adam's number rested beside his name. Tomas asked quietly, "Does knowing make it easier?" Mara looked toward the mountain. Snowmelt ran through the reopened drainage channel below the memorial. Nothing about the view felt healed. The dead remained dead. The years taken from them had not returned. "No," she said. "But now the grief belongs to the truth." Adam's sister fixed the tag beneath the memorial glass. Mara turned toward the path. Behind her, the metal caught the morning light.